This is ChangeMakers with Katie Gore, finding the right solutions for the affordable housing community.
Thanks for joining me once again for my continuing conversation with George Guy, the CEO and Executive Director of the Fort Wayne Housing Authority. If you're keeping score at home, George is the second ChangeMaker based in Indiana. Back in episode 17, we spoke with Alexandra Jacque, the Chief Operating Officer at Hayes Gibson Property Services. And I'm wondering, George, in part one, you mentioned you grew up and really cut your teeth in Illinois, but can we now call you a Hoosier?
Well, I've been here for 10 years. Listen, I've been called a Hoosier. I think folks have told me that you've been here for 10 years. And look, George, you've done enough in the state of Indiana. You can be called a Hoosier now. We know that you're Illinoisan by heart, but no, I've made Indiana my home, we've listen. Indiana is, people don't understand that. They look sometimes at the politics of everything, but I can tell you that there's a lot of compassion. Right.
Mhm.
And it made, in terms of where I come from, it made it easier to do the work they were doing because of all the compassion in the community. So no, I think folks would call me a Hoosier, Katie. I think so.
Common sense and compassion, those are the
There
good
we go.
ones for the Hoosier qualities. But sell us on how great Fort Wayne is and tell us, is there affordable housing tension there? I'm assuming there
Sure.
is.
Yeah.
Give us a glimpse of what's going on in Fort Wayne, both from a community aspect and the affordable housing aspect.
Fort Wayne is, first of all, it's a great community. The cost is what we're seeing now is because it's growing. Second largest city in the state, and obviously we're in Northeast Indiana. A lot of development going on, a lot of great things in terms of growth going on. The school system is great here because, again, I talked to you about the compassion and how folks are really caring, and the community is really, in terms of the agencies that are trying to help folks, they're really trying to figure out the best solutions for the folks that are living here. But with growth comes that tension, as you say, when it comes to housing. You can have all these great things going on in terms of growth, in terms of business wise, but what happens is that the crisis that's going on in terms of housing is still there. I think that the state of Indiana and Fort Wayne is not unique to that. That and throughout Midwest, I should say, those systemic zoning challenges that we talk about in terms of some of the inequities that exist in communities, those things are pretty heavy in Indiana, and Fort Wayne was one of them. And not too much of what anybody that we've done, we haven't done anything with that, but in terms of we didn't create that problem, but I think those problems have existed as they do in other communities, and I think that you got folks on one side or quadrant of the city that hasn't seen quite the investment as the others. Whereas there's other parts of the community that are really growing huge. I mean, they're growing to levels that are great for the community. But then there's parts that are not they're not growing at that rate. So I think the challenge is making sure that there's affordable housing throughout the community, making sure that it's affordable. As I said, when you got growth, you want to make sure that folks are not incomed out or cost out, and that's what's happening right now. Just a lack of affordable housing available. And when I say affordable housing, we want folks to have the same. Whether I'm in one part of town, you should be able to go. I hear this term housing opportunities. I understand it, and we all say it, we all use it, but those opportunities should exist everywhere. And I think that's the biggest challenge, if I can just sum it up in Fort Wayne, is that we got to figure out a way to make sure that these folks with these areas that had a lot of legacy and there was a lot of investment in at one time with the people that were living there, that we continue to we start to reinvest and think about innovative ways to make sure that that's there, from housing to business and just overall community development. We need to make sure that takes place, because now you have one part that's not quite like the others, and that's one quadrant out of four, and that's not, to me, that's not right. Unfortunately, that takes place in a lot of communities. So I think folks are trying to figure it out, trying to figure out how to be innovative and address those things. But affordable housing is an issue here. It is a challenge. The lack of access to it. We talk about the housing choice voucher program. A lot of folks are not accepting vouchers. When we look at these challenges, Katie, we say, okay, what can we do? So that's why we try to look at our landlords now as business partners. We try to find innovative ways to make sure that you're addressing those issues and challenges. And we're working with the city, the agencies in the city to address that in our little bit of what we're trying to do. But affordable housing is an issue here.
Are you trying to set a production goal or preservation goal or even some alternative landlord partnerships? Or what are some of the ways that you are developing some of those strategies to kind of chip away at some of that affordable housing tension?
Yeah, so preservation and production. I don't think that there's one way to look at this. Preservation is that we're looking at neighborhoods. We're looking at even our stock, right? That the housing authority owns, and we want to try to reposition that in a way that it can become a vibrant part of the community. We've also worked with the city at in areas where the housing stock in those communities, and how can we take those parcels and do something with. And we're also taking a look at redevelopment as well. So we try to do all of that. And then on the landlord side, obviously, yes, we're trying to make sure that we're working with landlords. We want to make sure that we're incentivizing them in the right way. Historically, there's been this weird relationship with housing authorities and landlords, as you know. And they used to be, okay, you're a landlord, here's your check, this is what it is. No, we're partners, we're business partners. And what we're trying to do is exactly, what your question suggested is how we're trying to take care of this challenge together. We find that landlords are very responsive to that. So how we do that is we have regular lunch and learns to recruit and also to retain landlords, our business partners in terms of what we're doing. And when we do that, we make sure that we have folks from the community development side of the city, and also other parts of our infrastructure here in the community, to make sure that they understand that folks that are in that business in terms of property management, or that's a form of redevelopment. And so we try to recognize that and making sure that we're doing what we need to do to fortify those partnerships. Again, the overall goal is to address this crisis that we have going on, and not do it in one lens, but look at it in multi lenses, and that's also including that as building relationships. And we think that that's an essential part of community development.
One of the things that I've been impressed with what you guys do is you partner so well with the city. You don't operate like an island to of yourself. You are going cross municipalities, districts, so to speak, and you're working with them on redevelopment or community programming or development. And you guys have done a nice job of handshaking across municipality lines. So tell us about a couple of the special programs that you've done, whether that's, I've read about your energy conservation programs, or whether that is about more youth programming that you've done. Give us some of those programs and share with us.
Oh, Katie, you've done some homework, boy. I tell you. Well, listen, first of all, collaboration is what this is all about. That's who I am at my core. And I apologize for that ahead of time when I talk to people. I'm trying to figure out ways I can collaborate more all the time. That's what keeps me up in terms of the work that we're doing. You cannot get the work done alone, whether it be internally or externally. So I really focus a lot on that. And that has been, I think, the difference in terms of um, what's changed, so to speak, is that we've been very intentional about that. And that's given us some opportunities. One of the things that we do, Katie, is we've been able to partner with the city in their ESG program. We have a commitment to homeless folks that are homeless here in the community. So we've been able to partner with the city and facilitate the local ESG program. And I'm proud to say, because of the work that our the team has done, we piloted the program, and we did it for many years, meaning the program that there exists now. And then we were able to now utilize other agencies, because of the work that we were able to do with the city, that now they're operating the program as we started the program. And so we're happy about that. And that's what collaboration is about. And so we're working with some of the homeless people here. We're also working with the state of Indiana, IHCDA, and the ESG program as well. So you talk about collaboration across these sectors and municipalities. That's given us the opportunity to do that. When you talk about youth, yes, that is to my heart right there. I spent many years coaching. I'm still a volunteer coach, but I was a high school coach for many years. But I got into my professional career focused on youth, and so it is my opinion that I think everything has spoken to that. I belong to the house. I'm one of the founding members of the Housing Education Task Force of NARO, and what that really represents is that, listen, this thing in housing, it's there's all these intersections. Housing is education, and it's healthcare, it's workforce. So, but education, I believe, is the gateway out of poverty. One of
Yeah.
the things that I told you about is there was a school that was directly across the street from where I grew up at, and that was a huge part of my growing up. Those teachers were pivotal in terms of who I am right now. And I believe the same thing is true today. And so we've been committed, thanks to our board, we had a resolution that we want to make sure that every child that is in our housing, that is part of our developments, at third grade, that they have a third grade level reading. Because based on studies, that's where it starts. That's where it starts. And unfortunately, that's where it ends. So we've been committed to that. And at every corner, turn, crack, or whatever, Katie, we've been looking for opportunities to do that and leverage that. And so working with the city, but also working at national programs. So we're fortunate to get the Youth Build Grant, which focuses on 16 to 24 ages, individuals that are ages 16 to 24, who are out of school for whatever reason, and really working at building the trades, and some of the other folks in terms of industry areas, that we think that we can give them access to. Again, giving them access. And I think that that's, when we talk about youth, you got to give them access, and our families, period. So we really focused on collaboration when it comes to that, and working with our local community partners, and trying to figure out where you're talking about veterans. We have a permanent supportive housing. I think we were one of the first ones. We have aging out of foster care development we're a part of, and we also have a one that we're working on now, but one that's already been up for the last year and a half as well. So really looking at the cross sectors and how these things intersect, and making sure that we're initiating and engaging in those conversations so we can be a partner as it pertains to that. So that's really been the center of what we do every day. It makes for a busy CEO. Uh, and I think my staff will probably, they want to throw rocks at me some days because it makes. But I think that being committed to what we call servant leadership has allowed us to be successful in terms of those partnerships.
I can definitely hear in your voice that giving back to young people and the people that you are serving is really a passion of yours. And something you said resonated with me about education being a conduit to help people improve their quality of life or really make that next step for their generation or advancement economically. I hear my grandmother's words telling me when I was young that there were only three paths to get out of poverty and stay out of poverty. And I think she was a little naive in her approach, but she lived in a different decade too. But she would tell me the three things were education, faith or religion, and your mom. And those were her guidelines. But, in all seriousness, I mean, you're talking about really community and education and family support, however you want to define that. And so I know a lot of housing authorities have started partnering more aggressively in high school retention programs, early
Mhm.
education programs, and put a lot more emphasis other than just the roof and where people live. So that program that you mentioned, how you guys started helping young people who were somewhere in that continuum. I mean, that is crucial to advancing people and really giving them economic stability, yes, but also potentially setting them up for their next life moment. So tell us maybe how that program came about Was that straight from the youth build, or was that somebody else's, vision that got that started?
Well, again, I'm guilty of being very ambitious when it comes to making sure we try to find resources that are going to help us do what we need to do. And sometimes it's going outside of what we do every day. And so I was very aggressive at getting a youth build grant from the Department of Labor. So after two shots, we were successful the third time. And I'm happy to say that we've been implementing now for the past several months. Um, and so, really, what that focuses on is, again, you talk about the continuum, is that you have some people, school's not for everyone, right, in terms of traditional setting.
Right.
And so, why not give them some type of access through a career of sorts to then link them into some type of educational program. Education is a part of that, right? But it's not traditional way of looking at education. So it's taking those young people that are out of school that did not complete their diploma, and so we really work on, we have a construction manager, so to speak. They also can get their CNA. And there's other forms of things in terms of career tracks that they can choose. But the central focus of it is construction. So as a housing authority, and as also one of our subsidiaries, we build homes as well. So we also have a huge maintenance department and portfolio in terms of the things that we do in that field. So we're leveraging what the housing authority has in terms of some of our bricks and mortars and also our skill sets that we have available to then educate um, these young people in terms of a different career field. Focused on the center of it is construction, at least getting them to where they need to do. So we have to partner with construction associations in terms of education, because there is an education piece that they have to go through, and then we tie them into what we used to call the GED. There is a program though they can get that as well. That's working at the pace that they need to work at. So again, you have to be flexible in terms of how we look at it. And we thought that this was something that not only just serves our residents, this is for the whole entire community. And again, as I told you before, that's really what we're a part of this community. Of course, our residents are impacted by that, but this is a service that we provide for the community. So we're recruiting everywhere, wherever we can find young folks at, and also partner with those agencies that work with them.
What an excellent program. And lastly, George, you are finally attuned to the link between civil rights, human rights, and combating systemic inequities. So, can you explain how affordable housing can be the glue that really holds it all together?
Katie, you're good.
I know the work you've been doing. You've been doing a great job, and we need to share your wisdom here, okay?
So yeah, and I appreciate the question. I'm gonna try to shorten my answer, but this is really the core. I talked a lot about growing up in public housing. I talked about the community I had pride in and how it was. But one of the things that, quite frankly, is some of the fuel behind what I do is the inequities that existed. It was true that when we went to high school, some of the kids or junior high school, when we had to kind of, I grew up in a primarily black community. Actually, it was 99 in terms of the part where I grew up and where public housing was at. We never paid attention to that until we got to middle school, and then we saw that we had other majority and races. We were dealing with whites and those type of things, and those folks were in a different economic situation than we were in. That always kind of bothered me. And then I would look at the situations that folks had to go through that in terms of my community. It was a great community, but why were there more drugs there? Why was some of the folks in my family and my friends impacted by drugs and alcohol and those type of things that are associated with economic situation? And I began to understand what that was about in terms of the inequities. So those things in terms of civil rights and human rights and how that links into the inequities, I just didn't understand. And I wanted to make sure that I was trying to do what I could to make sure that there was a level playing field. And as I said, through my work, coming from education and then doing some of the other things that I've been able to do, I then came to housing because it's really where people were living at. When I talk about public housing and I grew up there, the folks that grew up there, yeah, it was great, the experiences that we had, but the economic conditions that took place there, it impacted how, if there were people I grew up with that were smarter than I was, or just as smart as I was, who had potential, but for some reason or another, because of the elements that are associated with the community they lived in, they had a far greater chance
Right.
of failing. And that to me is a civil and human right that we should all have this. The playing field should be level. And if it wasn't intended to be, then we need to make sure that we are doing what we can do now that we know. Now, folks like me have been doing that, and we've been pounding this and been passionate about. But now that we all know this, now that we know that, then we should do what we can to repair it, and not just repair it, right? Get it to where it needs to be at. So I don't want to take it back. I want to just repair it where it needs to be at and get it to a point where folks have a level of competing. That's why the work that I'm doing is really intentional. Is to making sure that people have the opportunity to compete. And I think that that's what makes this country the best, is that everybody has the opportunity to compete. However, it hasn't been the same for folks, and that's what's not fair in terms of systemic inequities. And so I'm doing what I can do every day to make sure that whatever I'm involved in, that we're not just talking about that, we're doing something about it. So it is linked, absolutely, Katie, in terms of the passion, the mission, and the vision to the core of who I am. This is the work that I do every day is intended because of the civil human rights, and also to address and eradicate all the systemic inequities that exist every day on behalf of the folks that I grew up with that did not have that opportunity because of unfair drug laws and the amounts of drugs that were put on there, where they were being addicted, and substance abuse. It's very much a part of who I am. I understood that, but I wanted to make sure that there was another generation, or that we save some of these generations in terms of some of these things, and also repair those that have been impacted by that, so that going in the future they have an opportunity to be successful as well.
Well, we are glad that you are bringing this discussion to not just your community, but the national platform, because I think through multiple conversations about recognizing either what happened, what is happening, what could happen, and then trying to say, what are the strategies to look at where we go from here? Everything from communities of choice to equal access to lease enforcement. I mean, there's so many different avenues this conversation could take, isn't there?
Absolutely. I think it's our jobs as those that are aware of it through our education, and also through our experience, is that we have an opportunity to be the leader, so to speak, in this conversation, but also in, like I said, making sure that we're planning and actually doing the work, but also facilitating the conversations that are necessary as well.
Well, it's a new year in 2023, so I'm sure that this conversation can have a great panel and a great leadership at NARO this next time around. Every day that we're working on it as well, not just a couple of events a year, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
George, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to have you here and just talk about you, get everybody to get to know you better, and really highlight what's happening at the Fort Wayne Housing Authority and the National NARO Association as well.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for your leadership in allowing a platform for my colleagues and peers throughout the country to talk about what they're doing and to helping better people's lives.
Thanks for listening to ChangeMakers with Katie Gore. To find out more about Katie, go to quadel.com. That's QUADEL.com. This has been a production of Forbes Books Radio.